Hey, I mean, I saw the question. Celebrate your day. Project. Here, you're fine. She's gonna say Mary Lutzer with, oh, okay. Project. Yeah.
You're passing.
No, they got.
Nothing today. Doesn't matter if it's the same or not.
Like passing the third grade test.
That's great. Well, I found your water bottle. I couldn't find it. You're getting ready to leave when I saw you sitting in a chair. See other people. You recognize somebody today? Let's go. You like one?
Yeah, the trees out there, it's a nice job getting all the dead stuff out there.
That's why I have
It is funny. I just see stuff. It's like a couple times we can only get like he was in camps and stuff. The last and we did it. He
Glenn, are we good?
I'd like to call the September 16th Granville Exempted Village School District Board of Education meeting to order. Would you please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. We take a roll call, please.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Ms. Shaw? Here. Ms. Deeds? Here. Mr. Crum?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Please take the roll.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye. Mr. Brown, commendations.
Thank you. Sorry, we're playing with the podium to find out where the best place is for it. It might be over there next week. This kind of feels weird because I usually talk to you this way. So, tonight we have the opportunity to honor a couple of staff members, a couple of volunteers, and just a community member. So, Tonight, we have the opportunity to honor our Transcendia, a leader in custom engineering materials, and sponsors a yearly award for teachers who demonstrate excellence in education, specifically advanced in supporting the use of technology in science. This year's recipient, Diane McDonald, is an exceptional teacher of science in her classroom. Students epitomize the role of learner. Diane expertly designs authentic learning invitations for her students. From the most hands-on labs to the most theoretical discussions, Diane's class, the students become scientists as they analyze the world around them. Diane has the remarkable skill to create learning experiences for students that make complex scientific concepts accessible and engaging, ensuring every student has the opportunity to succeed. Diane embodies what it means to be an exceptional teacher: passionate, dedication, high expectations, and empathy. Her impact grows and spreads from the seats her students occupy every single day to the science and university halls that they transition to. So we are very proud and would love to thank Diane for contributing to our Blue Ace experience. So thank you very much and congratulations. You're not awkwardly taking individual pictures. You're welcome. Okay. Next, we are going to talk about the Jody Van Tyne Awards. Jody Van Tyne was a second grade teacher at Granville Elementary School from 1977 until the time of her death in March of 1985. During her brief career, Jody was admired, respected, and loved by many students whose lives she touched as their teacher, the parents, and the staff with she worked. Jody Van Tyne, the Outstanding Educator Award, was established in 2006 by Jody's father, David Mielek, who set up a special fund with GEF. The Jody Van Tyne Outstanding Educator Award commemorates her exceptional life and career by recognizing teachers who embrace qualities such as the sense of caring for others, the ability to understand and respond to individual needs of students, and a commitment to their education. Moreover, nominees are teachers who have made significant and distinguished contributions toward the growth of education of students in Granville School District. As in the past, selecting one candidate for GEF was very challenging, and so this year the nominating committee selected two very deserving award winners. Here are a few excerpts from the nominations submitted for the teachers. Dustin Grimm is an amazing educator that brings passion and energy to each class he teaches. He brings the characteristics of the Jody Van Tyne Award to the forefront. His boundless energy brings the curriculum to life and out of the books into the hands of his students. His ability to teach and promote learning is unmatched and deepens the experiences of his students day in and day out. Dustin has the knack of challenging not only the brightest students, but the students that struggle and have modified curriculums. He also respects each child's learning style while he promotes challenges within each student. There are no wrong answers, just some answers that are closer to the truth. Dustin removes the stigma of mistakes and focuses on the trial and error process. He is always positive and joyful with his communications. He's done a lot to expand the gardening program and composting programs at GIS, and he is an incredible asset to the school. Congratulations, Dustin. And our second award winner is Mr. Jared Smith. Here are some excerpts from his nomination. One of the biggest reasons for this nomination is because he has created an inclusive and uniquely special culture that welcomes students and supports the needs of all students. In turn, the students are proud of that culture and have embraced those values. I've heard several parents say that their child found their home in band. In terms of going above and beyond the expectations, he is responsible for over 100 students being in the marching band alone. He starts marching band practice in late July, is at convocation before school starts, at after-school practices throughout the week, every home and away football game on Friday nights, and participates in several weekend festivals and competitions throughout the fall. So yes, your wife is here for a reason. So this award is partially awarded to her. Reading that, making that connection. He expects a lot from his students, but has found a very effective way of balancing hard work and fun, which has earned him the respect and adoration of his students. Finally, he is an incredible teacher of music who has built an incredible group of bands, and bands that seem to advance far beyond the typical high school level. More and more kids are joining, and the awards and recognitions for their performances keep growing. Many of those students are going on to pursue careers in music and music education, in large part because of Mr. Smith. You can tell the impact he has had on the students' lives just by seeing the number of alumni that come back to perform with the band and help throughout the year. And I just have to say, the football games are fun, and we're winning. But the performances of the band, if you stay after, you get the full performance. And last week, we got to see what they were going to do at Johnstown during the band festival, and it was absolutely phenomenal. So we are very lucky to have these three professionals in our staff, and we feel very lucky to be able to honor them tonight. So now you can awkwardly come up. You're going to stand right here. We're just going to all point at you.
Go. 2, 3. Thank you.
All right. Thank you and congratulations. And I truly mean that for all of your spouses. I know that for all your spouses. It's truly a commitment of the entire family. Okay. All right. Now, we'd like to recognize Becky Van Winkle, or Miss Becky, as the GHS music students call her. She has become affectionately known as the Uniform Grandma, the title she wears with pride. Miss Becky has taken on the role of uniform coordinator for the entire Granville Music Department. She has ties to the music department because her daughter, Jennifer Hunkins, lives in Granville. There you go, right there. That's her. Her granddaughter, June, is in the band program, and 2 of her children went to OU and marched in the Marching 110 with Mr. Smith. Miss Becky has spent countless hours in the band uniform closet and in the makeup room, organizing, planning, inventorying, sewing, fitting kids for uniforms. She has organized and streamlined things like they have never been before, and is an amazing asset to the music program. She organizes other parents from each music department to come in and help with the process, and truly seems to enjoy what she is doing. The music staff greatly appreciates her time and dedication and wants to formally thank and recognize her. Miss Becky recently celebrated her 70th birthday, and that's usually not something I would put in there, I'm just saying.
I'm proud of it.
Okay, good. I was like, that might be a setup. It look easy with her lively energy and pride for what she does, and cares for the experiences these kids have. We'd like to wish Miss Becky a happy birthday and extend a great deal of gratitude for all she has done and continues to do for the GHS music program. So we have a little pin that we honor our award winners with, which is an excellence award with the little blue ace, and we hope that you wear it with pride.
I will.
Come on up.
I didn't dress up.
That's okay, I did.
She's been in the uniform room since 7
All
o'clock
day.
this morning.
Here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, then you can send it to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you very much,
Congratulations.
everybody.
Oh, and last but not least, I get to recognize Maria DeMarco, who is a reporter with the Newark Advocate and Sentinel. Maria has worked for many years reporting the highlights of achievements and activities of our students and staff, contributing significantly to our community's awareness and support. This recognition is intended to express our gratitude for her commitment and dedication to getting the news and information that Granville Schools needs to get to the rest of the community. And we work on building relationships with reporters because it is harder to communicate with people every single year as things change. And Maria has been a fantastic partner. I always answer her phone calls
In my
because
text?
it's a reciprocal, yeah, it's a reciprocal process. And she is moving into the Columbus Dispatch and also getting married. So I have to say that. Also, you know, we know that it takes a lot of time out of your life to come and sit at meetings, and sometimes she's the only one in the audience. So we appreciate her years of service, and especially during the COVID years, where it was a little bit more challenging to communicate. She was an absolute partner. So thank you, Maria. We wish you the best, and you get to wear a Blue Ace pin, even though you went to Newark Catholic. Yes. Perfect.
What is this?
Well, we'll put it on the front page.
Two, three.
Excellent. Thank you. We're going to miss this. You can always come back.
Expect a really good article now. That should-
Yes.
Can't worry about myself, not to get weird. But
That concludes our comments. That's usually the cue that if you need to leave, yes. Except for you. Thank you. Okay, next we have our staff reports, and our first report is going to be Mr. Scott Lofton, who will talk about summer projects and the operations department.
Should be a screw now. It says I'm connected. Oh, no, it says it's connected, sorry.
Maybe just try to reconnect, Scott.
It is doing it. Maybe.
Put down.
Just going to the one in person, maybe.
We could rise if we see. It hasn't said it right now, it just says connecting.
Yeah, and yours.
Well.
Lynn?
We have it back.
Talk amongst yourselves. I'm sure I'll have up to the deal, it's not, so.
Okay.
Right.
You want to get
So, yeah, so I'll just talk about a few things. You know, this week, we started our master facility planning meeting. We'll meet on Thursday, it'll be with our leadership team. You know, we'll talk about roles and goals to get that started, and then we'll hit the ground running shortly after that, and start to work through that plan. I talked a little bit about housekeeping. You know, we had a tough year last year, no way to sugarcoat that. But we started the year better than we were last year, and we've had some really good strides. You know, one of the things that is hard for us is if we have staff that calls off, getting people to fill those roles you know, if you have 3 that call off, that can really be tough on us in the night cleaning. So we've worked with a local company that can help supply that workforce when we do have multiple call-offs, right? So we can bring people in. And we've had our bumps, but it's gotten much better. And for us, you know, this is the 2nd year for Harvard. And, you know, I meet with them weekly. We talk through it. We try to hit anything that we see coming down the road. We try to plan out, like, on days when we have the 23rd, when we have no students in the building. They're going to come in and hit some of the floors, some of the bathroom floors. So it's trying to use those days when we don't have students in the building where we can continue to spruce everything up and keep everything looking good. So we will continue to monitor it, and if things continue the way they are, you know, we'll be happy. If not, then we'll have to have those hard discussions on what we do going forward. So.
Sorry.
That's all right. It's better to be the first one and have all the problems, so it'll be.
Okay, this computer died too. So,
You want to email that to me?
It'll have to be a link. I email it to you.
Just,
You want to just connect this one?
why, that computer has like an actual grade somewhere.
Send it to Brittany.
me. Glenn, just forward the email with those 2 presentations to me.
I can do that.
All right, let me.
Is that wireless, did you say?
Yeah, the projection should be wireless.
Well, just seeing as we just have a little bit of dead time, I don't want to wait for the board discussion. I just want to say, man, the teachers are fantastic here. I had a chance to, my wife Wendy was a part of the Granville Education Foundation group that looked at some of the applications, and there were so many. I looked through like 30 or 40 different applications. You know, passionate letters from parents, but also a lot from students about our staff members and the Vote Jody Van Dyne Award. And it was just spectacular to kind of hear some of the inside scoop about all the others and what a hard decision it was made.
Coming your way, Rick.
But also how spectacular these teachers came out. So I just wanted to take a minute to say that. I was going to say it in discussion, but I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, makes sense.
All right, thank you.
Good filler.
Very, very lucky.
Thank you, Brittany.
No problem.
All right. All
Where do
right.
you want me to go?
Yeah, right here. Let's start right here. So here's a list of projects that we were able to complete this last year. You know, most of that happens during the summertime. So we have that 2-month time period to try to bust out everything we possibly can to get ready for the new school year. As you can see, we replaced the stadium fencing. We added some parking spaces west of the stadium with additional ADA parking over there, which I think has made a few people happy. Flooring, we were able to get 16 rooms. We were able to change out the flooring, and I have a picture later on that I'll show you of the flooring that we put in. I'll just skip a couple. We added plastic covers to the pull stations in the elementary school. Sometimes hands start to reach for things, so the plastic covers help us avoid that situation, right? We replaced the retaining wall outside the commons doors. It was starting to collapse and it was starting to lean, so we wanted to get that taken care of before it got too bad. We did doing some door replacements. There's hand washing sinks at the GIS. In each pod, we went in and replaced all of those, the hand washing stations. Some shut-off valves, which are always great for us for when we need to do work, so we don't have to dump all the water in the whole building. Currently, we used to have all trucks in our district. We've added a utility van so that we can carry more tools. It helps us when we need to be more efficient and get things done. We don't have to run somewhere and find a tool, so we added the van to be able to carry more things for our employees. We did some landscaping upgrades. We're trying to make those more user-friendly for us so that we can come through and mow next to them and make them more rounded so that you're not getting out and doing trimming all the time. Big items were GHS, we replaced the air handling units 2 and 7 at the high school. A domestic hot water boiler needed to be replaced at the middle school. As I said, we did some doors. Through grant funds, we replaced put in some water bottle fillers. Drinking fountains are not really used much anymore, so having the water bottle fillers for students makes it a lot easier for them. Through private funds, we were able to replace the scoreboard at the stadium. Hopefully everybody has had the chance to see it. It looks great. At GEMS, who the little theater stage, I think, from all accounts, it was probably 30 years ago that was built, and it had seen better days. It was starting to warp and get some bounce in it, so we were able to replace that in a matter of just a couple of weeks, which was one of those nice ones that come in, see what the issue is, replace it, and get it back up and running in time for school. And then the theater dimmer rack. Now, most people don't know what a dimmer rack is, but it handles all the lighting. And it's one of those behind the scene things that most people won't notice at the theater, but it really can make the productions that much better. It's more efficient. It's all new electrical going through it, so we should be good for good 15 to 20 years with that dimmer rack, which is a good investment on our part. So, you have some pictures now.
Which of these were capital projects funds beyond the permanent improvement budget?
The air handler 2 and 7 and the domestic hot water boiler. Those were both the transfer from last year to the capital projects fund, and then the theater dimmer rack as well. And not listed on here was the digester, or that was as well.
But the rest of them all come from
The permanent improvement levy we have for regular ongoing maintenance to keep our
Correct.
buildings and things like that. It's a long list. Great. Thank you.
Next page. So here's a few of the pictures we were able to take. You have the parking. You have this beautiful electrical box, which, it's hard to take a picture and say, hey, this is a really good thing. But it's really good for us because it's weather tight. We won't have any issues.
Blue lean-to that covered it up before. You have to appreciate what was there prior.
Yes.
To know that is a significant upgrade.
Yeah. Go ahead, click to the next one. You have the water bottle fillers, the scoreboard, and then the fencing around the stadium. You have the in-progress portion of the little theater. As you can see, it's beefy and it's going to last a long time for us. Here's the flooring that we put in the classrooms. We made an adjustment and went to a different product. The Forbo that we were using is made overseas. It's shipped here. It's costly. This is a product that is manufactured in Georgia. It has a 15-year warranty on it. We went with a lighter color, than the Forbo because it helps brighten up the room, right? So you have the light coming in from outside, the light and you can just see how much brighter it looks. And as we placed it in, we got some feedback from teachers, and they all said they just loved it because they felt that it just brightened up the room, which then helps students in education, right? They like the brightness, they like the alertness. So we will continue to replace with this flooring. It goes down great. So here's some.
That, what kind of flooring is that? Is there a brand or a?
So this is a Shaw product that it's called luxury vinyl tile.
Yep.
I probably know too much.
They don't get it coming.
Great.
We did these are two of the projects we did in just doing some landscaping, and then you have the retaining wall in the center. As you can see, the plants look good. Getting this area to, before there was no mulch here at all, so they would have to go in between the trees, and so this makes it a little bit cleaner. The area here at the elementary school, we were having, the trees' roots were really close to ground level, and they became a tripping hazard. So we were able to come in and add more mulch over top of that to take out that tripping hazard. Taking down those two trees would not have been a good idea. The kids love to sit underneath them. It's shade for the kids, so it was a good idea. We felt it was the best thing we could do in not to alleviate that tripping hazard. So now here comes one of our new workers that we have working for us. There's a video.
Okay.
So this is a painting, it's a robot that paints, right? We use it to paint lines on our fields. So we have soccer fields, we have the football fields, we have the band marching field. So this guy right here, so we used to have 3 people that would have to run the string, and then one person would paint. You would just have to keep moving it. But one person runs this robot, and to do a football field would roughly be 4 or 5 hours with those 3 people. This robot can do a football field in about 1 hour and 15 minutes. As you can see, I tried to do this so you can see how straight the lines are. It uses GPS. It knows, it's on an iPad. It knows exactly where it is. It homes itself. And you just got to fill it up with paint and let it go.
And humans were not as straight.
No, we did have occasional issues where the lines weren't as straight as they possibly could be. So, we purchased this at the end of last year and started using it, in the spring, and it's been great for us because, while one person's doing that work, the other 2 can be doing other things, and it'd be more efficient for us. So,
What was the capital cost of that,
$17,000.
That's great.
Next, we can go to future projects. So a few things we have coming down the road. At the high school, air handling units 1 and 5, we'll look at replacing next summer. And then continue to do the classroom flooring. We'll continue to work through that process. We have some HVAC equipment we need to replace at GIS. And then on Granger Street side of the elementary school, the wood windows that are there are starting to show their age, and we're going to need to replace those soon. At GIS, the paint on the ceiling is not holding up as well as it should, so we're going to have to come in and paint that this summer. Scoreboards in the gyms of GIS and GMS are just old and time for them to be replaced. And then one of the larger projects we're looking at is extending water from the high school out to GIS so that we can get out of the water business that we currently are in for GIS. The EPA keeps hitting us with more and more regulations, and it's time consuming for our staff. So, any questions?
I know that the parking, especially on the west side of the stadium, is really appreciated. I've had more than a few folks comment. It just makes it that much easier for folks that have challenges or that are older and don't have to walk. They really do appreciate it.
It'll be very helpful during graduation as well.
Oh, yeah. The scoreboard looks great.
Right.
Athletes playing. Just kidding, I'm just kidding.
Sarcasm.
Yeah, sorry. Some of this information was in the Blue Ace News, right? Was some of it,
Yes.
the pictures, and yeah, I thought that was really helpful too. That more than just the couple people watching tonight. We see all this too.
We try to get several different ways to communicate.
Yeah, yeah.
How we're spending taxpayer dollars. Thank you, Scott. Okay, Mr. Burnett is going to come up and talk a little bit about the local report card.
Do you want to connect, Brian, or?
Yeah, let me try and connect. Should it worked earlier.
So if he connects, does that kick you off? Because many people are.
Glenn, you have the remote stuff.
Yes, I do.
All right, there we go. Mr. Burnett's showing you up, Mr. Lofton. He doesn't have a scoreboard, though. I do not.
Kind of.
That's a scoreboard. That's kind of, yeah, that's a scoreboard, I guess, if you think about it. Yeah. All right, so for the 2024 report card that came out Friday from the ODE, I'm not going to give a presentation now. You can watch what I said last year at the board meeting, and that'll cover everything that we need to talk about. Because it's literally a carbon copy of it. I will run through it very briefly and just explain. The biggest thing with the report card sometimes is how do they come up with these rankings and these grades? Some of them are pretty straightforward. Some of them are not so straightforward. So our overall rating was 5-star again. Just to kind of give that a little bit of context, there were 68 other districts in the state of Ohio. So just over 10% of the districts in the state are rated as 5 stars. And those ratings go from 5 stars all the way down to 1. I believe there's only one 1-star, 1.5-star district this year in the state. That rating comes from a synthesis of several different areas. We have 5 different areas of our report card that we're graded on right now. One is achievement, which is kind of what it describes, how you do on state tests. One is progress, how do you get students from point A to point B no matter where they are. Gap closing, which just requires a lot of explanation. We'll spend a little time on that tonight. Graduation, which is the exact opposite, very self-explanatory. And then early literacy, which focuses on literacy in the K-3 world only. College and career and workforce and military readiness is a component of the report card, but it's not going to be graded until no earlier than next year. And I'll kind of show where we are with that and what that's measuring, but we don't know how it's going to be graded. We just have a score for us this year. So I'll touch base on that a little bit towards the end. The first area we'll look at is achievement. It's the one that we're most familiar with. It's the one that you see that's put out there most often in different types of publications and so forth. The number that this is all based on is the performance index, and that basically looks at every student and every test and says, how did that student do on that test? Did they score advanced plus, advanced, accomplished, proficient, basic, or limited? If every student in our district scored proficient, where they met that requirement, our performance index score would be 100. Our performance index score was 105.6. And they use a metric of 109.3. That is from the top 10 districts in the state. So they divide your number by the top 10, and that's how they come up with that percentage. I put this chart over here because you'll see post-COVID, the last 3 years we have been 105.6, 105.6, and 105.6. That's really hard to do because the state tests go up and down during that time, and we've been relatively constant during that time as well. What I will say is that what this chart doesn't show, the COVID year, we were 88.6, which is not surprising because we had so many students not testing that year. 105.6 puts us back into where we were pre-COVID, and those scores are very comparable. So, one of the areas that we look at is, our students growing as they go along, and that's when we'll get into the progress piece. This achievement piece is just how did they do from a test perspective in every tested area, from 3rd grade all the way through high school. Progress, like I mentioned, is taking students from point A to point B, wherever that point A is. And what they'll do is they'll put all the students in the state that take these assessments and say, okay, these students scored this on 4th grade math and English, and this on 3rd grade in math and English. So in 5th grade in math and English, they should be here. And they base that on a comparison to, all the students have taken all these tests over time. So it's a huge statistical analysis. And then they break down what is our progress by grade. So our overall rating for progress is 4-star, which means our students grew more than expected. The dark gray and blue are growth that was above expected. The green was expected growth. And the orange and red are areas where there was below expected growth. And every year, every district has, some of it kind of changes over time depending on how students progress. If you're putting a new curriculum in place, I'm very interested to see what this looks like next year with the new science and reading curriculum in grades 4 through 6, see how that impacts this. And then the gray areas are non-tested areas. So we don't have math 1 and math 2 at the high school, for example, so there's no progress there. So progress is one of those areas that gives you more questions than answers. I can't stand up here tonight and say, okay, well, American government's red, so we got to do something there. Because the reality of American government, as an example, over 97% of our high school juniors passed the American government test. They were 9th in the state in overall passage rate in American government. All those kids, if they also passed U.S. history, which most of them did, got the citizenship seal. So are we measuring what is important in American government because we were a little bit below progress in that, or the fact that 97% of our kids were able to get a citizenship seal, and that's one less graduation requirement they have to worry about. So some of the times you have to look at these things and say, okay, what does it tell us and what does it mean? I think more valuable in the area of progress is in about another month we'll get individual teacher progress, and that's where we can sit down with individual departments and individual staff members and look at the growth of their students for areas of celebration and areas where maybe we want to take a closer look at some things as we go through instruction this year in classes. So progress is tough because it's based, it's a comparison, it changes every year, but I think sometimes you have to look at the bigger picture with this when you're just looking at this number. The reality of the situation is we have students performing at a very high level and we're growing above expected. Those are two very good things to have in a school district. Gap closing, I need to take a deep breath on this one. So gap closing is kind of the place where they have kind of put everything that didn't maybe fit in other places along with how are you doing in math and reading for your subgroups of populations. So a subgroup is defined as any group of students that you have 30 or more of in your district. We have 8 subgroups in our district. All students, that's a subgroup, that's everybody, so that's more than 30 obviously. Students with disabilities, multiracial students, English learner students, white students, Hispanic students, Asian students, and economically disadvantaged students. Those are our 8 subgroups. And so the first thing that they look at in gap closing is, did each of those subgroups meet their predetermined achievement score in math and reading? And that's what you see down here. The red dot is where we were supposed to be for each of these subgroups based on state performance and past performance. The bar is where we ended up at. You can see our bars exceed all those red dots. So we got 16 points on the achievement side for English and math for those 8 particular subgroups. Then the next thing they look at with gap closing is how much did they grow. And this one's a little tricky because every single subgroup grew more than expected, but you have to get growth that's 2 times above expected or well above average to get this particular point. So you can't just say your students grew as expected, they have to well exceed that. So in math, you see some of the groups went across this red line, some groups did not. In ELA, even though we had positive growth across the board for every subgroup area, they didn't meet that magic red line, so we got 0 points in that particular area. The next thing they look at is graduation rates. Did all of your subgroups meet their graduation requirements? And you'll see when we get to the graduation part. It's never been a concern here, but we did meet all of those. And then finally, did your English learners progress more than expected as well? And you can see where that red dot is their expectation, and here's where we were, so we were well above that. Each of those areas gets a point added to the total of 54 points that are possible for this. And then finally, they kind of threw a couple other things in there because they really didn't fit anywhere else. The first one is chronic absenteeism. And you know, we've talked about absenteeism the last few years from the House bill number that I can't remember right now, and all the state law rules that have come into play with chronic absenteeism. We were at 10% chronic absenteeism, which was lower than we were the previous year. So that's a very good trend. The state expected us to be below 18%. We were at 10%, so we easily met that benchmark. And then finally, they pull out gifted students as well. And you have to meet three things with gifted students: their overall performance, their growth, and if you're serving gifted students in the classroom. We met all three of those indicators. So if you add all of this up, there are 54 different data points. We met 47 of the 54, which is 87%. That's where that number comes from. To get a 5-star, you have to be above 60. So we were well above the threshold for that. The part that we didn't get points for, like I mentioned, it was all in the progress area, but they all grew, they just didn't grow enough. And I think, you want to pull the positive out. Did you get 0 or nothing? You get 1 point or 0 points. There's nothing in between on those. But that is the gap closing measure.
Brian, what's used to determine gifted students and what percentage of our population meets that? Probably a lot of different categories.
Yeah, so gifted is all based on, it has to be a test that's involved. So that can start as early as 3rd grade. And you have to score at the 95th percentile in a standardized assessment that the state okays or approves. So for us, MAP testing is one of those approved vendors. Terra Nova testing, InView testing, ACT and SAT, you can become gifted off of those. So every time we give those assessments, we work very closely with Alicia Haven, who's our gifted coordinator at the ESC, and she will go through, and her and I working together will mine that data for new identified gifted students. And that's how you become gifted or identified gifted. Then the second part of that is putting them in classes.
So this doesn't have to do with service.
Has nothing to do with service. That's just the identification. The only thing that's required by state law is that we identify students. We're actually not required by law to serve.
Right.
Even though it's measured, you're not required to serve. So the second part of that then is putting those students in classes in clusters, or encourage them to take advanced or AP type classes later on. So the younger grades, we very intentionally place students together so that teachers don't have a range of 0 to 100 in terms of student percentage. They have 3 different groups in their classrooms, and some teachers get groups of gifted students that are clustered in groups of 6 or 7 or 8, depending on how many we have. About 50% of our students are gifted in a subject. It's actually a little lower than 50 right now. Early literacy is actually a combination of 3 components. For the first time, we actually have all 3 components here. In the past, we were only given grades based on 3rd grade proficiency, which was at 89% this year. That's up 7% from the post-COVID time, which is really good to see. Promotion to 4th grade, which was 100%. It's kind of an important thing too that we're pretty proud of. And that's the only thing we got weights for. This year, we'll also have the improving K-3 literacy score, because over 10% of our kindergartners were off track. And to kind of put that in context, 33% of our kindergartners were off track last year. And we're expecting some similar things, similar numbers based on this year's data. The tests were changed a little bit, so they're a little bit more difficult. But at the same time, some of the metrics that are used are putting more kids in that. It's a question that we've asked, why is that happening? And I don't have an answer for that right now. It's something that we're going to take a deeper look at. Sometimes you can say, well, it's just a cohort of kids that's coming through. When you have 2 or 3 years, now you have a trend. So what's causing that trend?
And I think it's important to note that that assessment is given in the first
3 days of school, 4 days of school, yeah.
4 days of school. So
We had to have it done by Wednesday. So we have 20 days to get all the kindergartners done with all these assessments.
So it's done basically as they're entering.
As they're entering.
So it
It's
is
like, hey, welcome to kindergarten, here's the
of
test.
preschool students.
And then how did we do compared to the state on early literacy? Do you know?
Like what
Like
part?
this percentage here?
So this percentage is very typical for a lot of schools
Okay. Yeah.
within that range. A lot of schools that are similar to us have less than 10%. I don't know how that's happening. There are some schools on that list that have 70% of their students passing third grade, but they have less than 10% of kindergartners off track. That doesn't seem like reporting is being done properly, but that's not my concern. My concern is what's happening here. So,
Right.
you know, in response to this, one of the things that, you know, Mr. Morris does a great job, and Mrs. Stewart at the elementary school, of having literacy nights and so forth, and opening those up to our pre-K parents and inviting them in for, these are the kind of things that kindergartners are expected to do, because, I mean, Cecile, as you well know, kindergarten is a different expectation than it did 25 years ago. And, you know, what students are being asked to do in kindergarten. So, so this is, historically, we've always kept track of this number, even though we didn't get scored on it. It's actually a little bit higher than normal to get them back on track. But that goes back and forth as the kids go through K-3, all the way through their K-3 experience. The part that I would focus on is that 100% of kids have a path to fourth grade. We're not retaining anybody, which is great. Graduation is very self-explanatory. There's a 4-year rate and a 5-year rate. We've talked about this in the past. Our graduation rate not being 100% is our students who are on IEPs that go another 5th or 6th year walk at graduation, but the state does not consider them graduates. That is the reason this is not 100%, and that's a really poor metric in my opinion, and I hope somebody at ODEW is watching me say that, because it's really not fair to those kids, because they're being singled out for services that are guaranteed federally until age 21. And then finally, this is the career and workforce military readiness. And I know this is really small, but I just wanted to show you all the different metrics that go into this, because we're still trying to figure out what exactly they're going to do with this. Basically, they're saying you had 208 graduates, and 146 of them met these criteria. They got 12 college credit plus credits. They scored remediation free on the ACT or SAT. They got an honors diploma. They earned an industry credential. They joined the military, along with about 17 other different things on here that students can have. One of the things that you know, we were very low in percentage-wise on this was CCP credits. We talked about this last year, how we're incorporating that into high school now. So that'll be a pathway where students can meet this. It's not really a graduation requirement. It's just the state's way, in their minds, of measuring, are the students really prepared for what's next? Either they're scoring well in the ACT, SAT, or they have college credits in hand, or they have some kind of work credential. I will say we have over 50 kids at CTEC this year, so our credential numbers should go up significantly as well, which is really good to see. Students are starting to take more advantage of the services that are offered over there. So that is our state report card. Again, we're a 5-star again, and it's not we don't believe that's the only measure of what makes a great school, but it's certainly nice to get that validation. And you know, it's thanks to the teachers that we have, the administrators we have in the building that work hard to make sure that we're getting the most out of our educational experiences, and that's the end result of that. And then have a supportive community behind it, because without all 3 of those things, and students wanting to come to learn, none of this happens. So I'll take any questions that you have.
That's great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, jumping right into our cash balance comparison for the month of August compared to last year, we're about $2.3 million above where we were. Again, this is due to the carryover cash balance that we had at the end of last fiscal year, and we're continuing, and we'll see that trend continue through most of the rest of this fiscal year. And that is in alignment with the forecast that we submitted in May, and with the versions that we're looking at for November, the November update as well. On the revenue side, for local taxes, this is a timing issue between the settlement and advance payments that come in between July and August. So that's always going to vary from month to month, year over year. And then all other revenue, again, is a timing issue with our E-rate payment. So then looking at year-to-date, that helps us have a more apples-to-apples comparison. Local tax revenue is up over prior year, and this is, a portion of this is the income tax increase that we reported on in July. That is getting back up to where we were prior to last year. And then the income tax, or the property tax increase is related to the 2023 reappraisal and that small portion of inside millage and new construction increase that we get for property tax. So that is also in alignment with what we expected to receive this year. On the expenditure side, for the month of August, we had salary, base, and step increases, as well as additional staff that we added, and we'll continue to see that through the year. Purchase service, this is a pretty significant increase over prior year. Some of this is timing, where we're paying it. We have different vendors that are billing at the beginning of the year versus some of these services that we've typically run through the ESC, for example, which are spread over all 12 months. But it's all related, or a large portion of that is related to special education contracted services. So if you think back to last month's meeting, we approved several of these contracts, so that's now being reflected in the financials. Year to date, same items that I mentioned previously for salaries and purchase service, and then under all other expenditures, last year included the capital projects transfer. This year we have not done that yet until we have more finalized numbers and contracts to approve. So comparing over on the right, rather than expenditures being lower than previous year, after accounting for that transfer, expenditures are actually up about $800,000 over prior year. Then moving to the capital projects fund, we actually had a payment on the air handler rooftop unit projects since the time that I updated these slides. So we have probably one more payment, I think, to wrap that up. And then the theater dimmer rack finished last week, so I would anticipate that we'll be getting that invoice to get that paid as well. And then that brings us to our cash reconciliation, and that is all for August financials, unless there's any questions or comments.
This and the ESSER funds.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, this is the shortest report that I've had in 5 years.
Once it were.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Okay, we're at the point of the meeting for public comments. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There's a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. If anyone would like to address the board, I encourage you to step up and state your name. Speak up to 3 minutes. Okay. Board discussion, Mr. Brown.
Well, I'm actually going to have our treasurer set up the conversation about purchasing limit approvals.
Yep. So this is kind of a two-piece discussion that we would like to have tonight. So this was triggered by a change in the law regarding the bid threshold for improvements to school buildings, and that threshold is being increased in the law from $50,000 to $75,000. However, our board policy has that dollar amount specifically listed in it. So in the next round of policies that will be coming up, that will be one item that we have some discretion whether we want to increase that to match the legal limit or if we want to keep it at $50,000. So we wanted to open that up. We don't often have discretion when it comes to policies, unfortunately. A lot of it is, this is the law and this is what it needs to be. So that's one piece of that. And then the second piece of the discussion is related to contracts that we bring to the board for approval. So that is not specified in board policy. But what our practice has been is anything over 25,000 is typically what we're bringing to the board for approval. So the reason for having that as a discussion is just to make sure that we're all still in agreement with what we want to do, but also think about whether that needs to be increased for the same reason they're increasing the bid threshold. So it's to account for inflation. So as we talked about with some of these special education contracts and other items that have come up, we're bringing more and more things for board approval because things are costing more than what they did in the past. So those are the two pieces to the discussion that we wanted to have tonight, and get your thoughts and feedback on that.
Okay, so the first one, that limit is a capital project limit that has to pass board approval. Okay.
Correct.
And the second one is contracts.
Yep, yep. And actually, it's really, what we've done is more than just contracts, even if it's like a purchase of an item. So for example, the robot painter, we brought to the board for approval because the purchase of it itself plus the service, the annual service fee that you pay exceeded 25,000. So that's an example of something that wasn't necessarily a contract, but we did bring for board approval.
I guess I'll just kind of give my own perspective on it, but I'd be curious to hear the other board members as well. Like, I think the fiduciary responsibility of the board is really important, right? And so I really like seeing it. Maybe that's just because I'm kind of a numbers guy. Like, it doesn't hurt me at all to have more items on the agenda to kind of know where that's coming from. But also, we put a lot of trust in our administration and all of our staff to do the jobs well, right? So I wouldn't want, in any case, for our involvement to slow things down. Right? Like if you need to get a contract done or you need to buy some equipment or something like that, I don't want the board ever to be hesitation there. At the beginning of the year, we passed a resolution for hiring, right? Where those hires all have to come by, but we give authority to the superintendent to do that. So I guess my perspective is like, I'd like to see rather than not see more. But, whether that's done in the logical limit, like we saw the robot, which was $17,000 plus some contract stuff, but that maybe didn't hit the thing. So I'm okay with seeing more as long as it's not slowing you down, right? And I guess that's my perspective on it, because I think we have a real, financial responsibility as the school board to be aware of spending and things like that. And we put a lot of trust in our administration and treasurer to do that well. But I guess my personal perspective is I'd kind of rather see more than less. Like, I don't know how that relates to whether we should raise the limit or change our policy to be more in line with state law or the guidelines and so forth. That's just kind of what I'm thinking about. I'm curious what other board members think.
Yeah, Thomas, what I'll add to that is I think the incremental value of $25,000 as, do we have many contracts that are within that 50 to 75 that are actually brought to our attention?
I would say we probably do.
Okay.
I would be afraid to guess, like throw a number out there just off the top of my head, but yes, there are definitely ones that fall in that category.
I see these bid thresholds increasing, decade after decade after decade. So, us as a current body right now, I wouldn't see any issue increasing that from 50 to 75 and keeping the contracts at 25 as well. Only because I just feel like this is something we're going to see for years to come with cost increase, with inflation, just as past boards have, right? So there might have been an increase from state law from 25 to 50, right? We're just at that next threshold now of approving that, where it doesn't take up time approving, it doesn't take up time and agenda space on a monthly basis.
Yeah. Also, one clarification on the bid threshold, it's actually 75, and then they have a inflationary adjustment in there for each year thereafter as well. So we could have, my recommendation if we wanted to go that route would be to have some sort of language that says following the legal limit or something like that, so that we wouldn't have to make changes to the board policy every time that limit increases.
As fiscally transparent and open as we are as a district, I don't really see that being any hesitation. I think maybe on going forward with that, state law, inflation, just as other, boards have done previous to us.
Well, and I think Mr. Lofton's presentation was an excellent example of that.
How many
There
things?
were things on there that were $5,000, and there were things on there that were $1 million plus. So I think our commitment is to continually, be transparent about how we're spending those dollars, but again, don't want to slow the process down as was articulated.
Any other comment about?
What's your comfort level? What are your recommendations?
So for the bid threshold, I definitely think that it would be advantageous to increase that to the legal limit. I mean, there's just not a lot that can get done under 50,000, and honestly, a lot of the improvements end up being urgent necessity issues, and so the time and expense associated with preparing bid documents and going through that whole process is extensive and would definitely slow down the process. As far as the contracts goes, I don't necessarily have a preference. If there is a situation where something has to be signed, we will do that and get that contract signed and still bring it to the board for approval. So I don't think. Yes. And so I think that's fine. It's just something that we wanted to talk about because it hadn't ever, at least not since I've been here, have we actually had a discussion and said this is our threshold. It's just kind of something that I inherited from what was done previously. So just wanted to throw it out there as part of this discussion because I think it's all kind of connected.
Yeah, I mean, the state legislature, just to add up on that, is recognizing this across the entire state on raising that threshold in their eyes legally, so we would just have to follow suit to make sure we're all square.
You looking for action this evening?
No, I was gonna say, if that's the feedback, generally what I'm hearing is increase the bid threshold, keep contract approvals at 25. So we can kind of run with that, just continuing our practice. I don't think unless there's a desire to add that specific language to a policy about bringing contracts, we can just continue that. And then we'll have the direction that when we present the first reading of the policy related to that bid threshold, we'll add that discretionary language. And then obviously we'll vote to approve that policy along with the next group.
Is it your, would you like a policy on the contracts, or are you?
I don't think it's necessary. It's just something that's not in there.
Right.
And I don't think it's definitely not legally necessary. It's just something that I wanted to make sure we were being transparent about and doing what you all want to see as well.
And a good example that I could also share is, just as we were doing the water line replacement conversation, we ended up in a conversation with the village and township about a corridor study. That study would be about $15,000 for the school district. It's something that, it's been discussed probably for 25 or more years, how to get a path potentially out there. The topography is extremely challenging, and there aren't a lot of easements that would be doable, but a feasibility study would be something that we could then point to if we're questioned about, whether a path should be created. So, that would be something, again, below the $25,000 threshold, but it is something that I would communicate to the board as, hey, this is something that we're doing in relationship to a broader conversation. But I would just work behind the scenes with Brittany to authorize that payment to be, so.
And that's a good point too, because we do have, this will just help us from a consistency standpoint, because there are several times where we bring a contract or item for board approval that is well under that. So the ESC of Central Ohio contract is on here, and that's well under that limit, so.
But that's good to know now, right? It's good
Yeah.
to understand like how we're working with different ESCs. It's great to understand that there's some engineering work going into a project and so forth. So like I'd encourage you to put more things, maybe we need like an FYI section on the agenda almost, right? It's like, oh, this has already been approved, this is what we did. But like to make it public that like we're doing these things that are moving forward in terms of our education, our facilities and so forth. So continue to bring things, but like I trust you in terms of the limits that are appropriate there.
That's helpful. Yeah. The only other thing, any other feedback on that before I transition? The only other thing that I'd like to, give the board an opportunity to share their thoughts. The JED was approved by the township, so that JED is now in place, that overlay is in place. That is a huge step. I think literally, Amy, when we were on the board, when I first walked in, we were talking about economic development and a JED being a tool to spur that type of economic development to occur. And now, 13, 14 years later, that coming to fruition is a huge step to maybe make some incremental movement on our distribution of residential versus commercial base. So that, I just wanted to highlight that, as well as inform you that the CIC, the Community Improvement Corporation, that Brittany's been instrumental on, with the chamber, has also now incorporated there, a public body. Our representative is Eric Smith, but they will be tasked, now that the JED is in place, they will be tasked with how do we, go out and cultivate some economic development that is in alignment with the comprehensive plan and other documents that have been guidance documents forever in Grandma. So I just wanted to publicly thank our partners in that process, and it's been a long time coming, but I'm glad we're here.
I feel like Russ Janine should be sitting up here right now.
Yeah, Russ talked about that a lot.
Yeah, that's big, yeah. Big pictures.
He's probably watching.
I'm sure.
He misses us.
No, but I think it's, I agree we should be acknowledging our partners. And I think we should be acknowledging our administration for always not just only sharing and representing the school district point of view, but a lot of times taking leadership roles, even though we didn't necessarily, we don't have the ultimate say in these things, but we've been at the forefront of how important this is to the community as a whole. So congratulations to you, to both of you, for keeping this in the forefront.
Yeah, relative to the JED and the CIC, they're really timely. Maybe we could have done more with commercial development in the past, maybe not, and so forth, but like, it's great that we're engaged and we have the mechanisms in place to make that happen now. We had a lot of conversations about growth a couple of years ago. It's often maybe because of the hard housing market, maybe because of Intel timing or whatever and so forth, but it's really important, right? And you can't put these things off until you needed them yesterday, right? Because we know what's going into making them. So timing is really important. It's both of those mechanisms to have in place with our partners is fantastic and really important. I don't think that JED in the commercial development is going to fully solve all Granville schools' future tax problems, right? I mean, we've always said that, maybe this will get us above 10% commercial value, but that's sort of a stretch, right? But from not being able to develop any more in commercial value would be really irresponsible of us. So I hope it's great that our partners have taken that inspiration and they're helping us put those things in place, because it's going to be important for our future financially. So, okay, great.
I've just got a couple things in board discussion. Jeff and I attended the Athletic Hall of Fame induction on Saturday night that the Boosters, Athletic Boosters helped sponsor. It's at Cherry Valley Hotel, and very nice event. So, and then this Sunday, right at GES, are the kickoff to the homecoming
Yes.
activities.
Yes.
Parades at 6.
Yes.
And there is a burn ban, so we will not be doing a bonfire.
I was just gonna ask,
Yeah.
But there's plenty of other activities
Yes.
going on,
100%.
so.
And it's so neat that the week is being kicked off.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
the following week, we're all getting the other activities.
Right, and the Education Foundation is driving that. So I encourage everyone out there in TV land to come by. Does it start at 4, 5?
I'll have to check.
Sorry.
4, yeah.
4? That's why you get a pin.
Yeah.
And I think it goes till 7. But it's at the elementary school.
Yeah, working at the GEF alumni event over the 4th, so many alumni said, can we bring back the ox roast, or the pig roast, or whatever it was, and we bring back the bonfire. So this is a big thing from Granville's history, that it's great to kind of see alumni inspired to do. It's also really great to have GEF engage with our alumni in a real productive way, because I think there's good opportunities to kind of keep them in touch, because they're all excited about the great stuff that we continue to do in the schools, those beyond Granville, hopefully will be coming back around, coming here from South Carolina, so, yes,
We better tell them about the jet.
yeah. If I'm there, I will, you know I will. I don't invite them.
Any other board discussion? Action agenda.
Okay. Our first item, 10.01, is the approval of 2 policy adoptions.
So moved. Second.
And so these were on last month in error. Now they're back in the right place. So again, cybersecurity and graduation requirements. I think the heavier lift is the cybersecurity issues, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a future action item. But I think it's a good roadmap for Glenn and his team to kind of have a solidified policy to guide our actions.
Discussion. Take the roll, please.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Thank you. 10.02 is the approval of the ECAC annual plan.
So moved.
Second.
So as you're aware, we're required annually to have a business advisory committee. We align with Lincoln County's business advisory committee. They have a monthly meeting where they bring in all the businesses to talk about what their needs are. So we are approving their plan because we're aligned with them.
Do we have a representative, or what's our feedback mechanism?
Yeah, we have. So it bounces between Ryan and I.
Okay.
Based on our.
So based on their input, do you get the feedback?
Yep.
Incorporate that. Thank you.
Take the roll, please.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Thank you. 10.03 is the approval of the ESCCO contract for CPI training.
So moved. Sorry. Second.
And that is, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the actual acronym. CPI is the Crisis Prevention Intervention. Yes. Sorry. In a moment.
What's that, how much is that contract?
It's usually around 3,000, 5,000.
Take the roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Next item is the approval of our Ohio Guidestone contract, which would authorize me to enter into a contract with them.
So moved. Second.
Okay, so as you know, we lost our therapist with them last year. It took us a little bit of time to solidify a new person to work at GMS, but serve the entire community. So we now feel comfortable that we can enter back into that contract with them.
So is it the same scope of position, which was full-time or part-time?
It's 4 days a week, but it is a higher cost because of inflation. So we are doing an internal analysis of, different paths that we can take in the future to maintain the same type of service to the community. It's really meant to be a bridge for parents and students that need maybe longer care, but are having wait lists of 6 to 9 months. So it really is a way to provide a bridge to broader services.
Well, it's great to be tied into Guidestone as well as all the other local providers and things like that. And I think that is an important connection to make sure we reinforce and stay on top of. So thanks to Guidestone for doing that.
Yeah, and it, right now, the field, working in the behavioral health field, it's just really tough finding staff. It's just very difficult. So, I mean, a bridge is probably a good way of putting it, because you're not underestimating when it can take 6 to 9 months to see a medical provider. Take the roll, please.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Thank you. 10.05 is the approval of the job description of the Assistant Director of Technology.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, this one I'm going to explain a little bit. So later on in the consent agenda, we will be accepting Shelley Bailey's resignation. She presented last year in October talking about cybersecurity, and apparently she did a really good job, because she's going to be taking a different position to do some of that work more intentionally. But as we do every time a position have a position leave, we go through that process of, do we need to replace it? Do we need to reallocate it? Do we need to reposition it? This is one of those opportunities that the systems administrator position that she was in was really a function of about 10 years ago. And, what Glenn really needs is a person that has a very similar skill set that he has to manage the ever-growing technology needs that the district has. So we are taking the opportunity to build the assistant director role, which will be more encompassing of all the things that Shelley did, but also some of the things that Glenn does. Did I do that accurately?
Correct.
Okay, excellent. So, I didn't get into any technical language because I know it's outside my sandbox. So, but the next 2 items are related to that. The next item will be the salary schedule associated with that. It will be correlated to the assistant treasurer level. So,
But,
The assistant. Where did that again? The salary will be.
so the salary schedule was mirrored off of the
Okay.
assistant treasurer's.
Gotcha. Yep.
Does making it the title of assistant director a more attractive
We hope so.
organization for? I'm just curious.
Yeah, we think so and we hope so.
this is also probably a very challenging one to recruit for.
Right.
There's a lot of
Right.
that down there, so.
Take the roll, please.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Thank you. And more importantly, Glenn, thank you. Approval of the salary schedule,
So moved.
Second.
and I already mentioned that.
Take the roll, please.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Okay, takes us to the consent agenda, 11.01A through C5, 6.
So moved. Second.
So a couple of items, obviously we always appreciate donations and grants from our community members. We have several supplemental contracts. We have a couple of resignations, some bus drivers. I mentioned Shelley Bailey as well, but you'll also see that we are adding some bus drivers as well. And then we're just codifying a vacation payout that was made last year for employees that left the district. So making sure that that is then codified through board action.
What is the $2,325 for? Do you have specifics on that, or?
Yeah, so he is donating a coffee machine and coffee to the elementary.
teachers?
Yeah. Hey, I'm just saying, Mr. Morris likes his coffee, and,
Wow, I'm in the
Are
wrong.
you you inviting us to coffee?
I've invited everybody from the district office.
yes.
That was not translated to us.
Yes.
I will be there.
Once it's
tomorrow.
board approved, then I
Of course, yeah. That's all the steps, thank you.
Is there Danish?
will. No.
Only Don's Donuts, Mr.
Do it, that's right, yeah.
Yes.
Take the roll, please.
Ms. Shaw,
Aye.
Ms. Deeds,
Aye.
Mr. Cron,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 12.01 is approval of the August 2024 financial report.
Second?
Any additional questions or comments?
Take the roll, please.
Ms. Deeds,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Cron,
Aye.
Ms. Shaw,
Aye.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 12.02 is approval of the permanent appropriation resolution for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025.
Second?
The only change on this from the temporary appropriations that we approved in June is a reduction actually in the ESSER fund to match what was actually paid out in this fiscal year versus last fiscal year, so.
Just couldn't get away from those.
I know.
This
Ran that
officially
report, I saw that
closed it out.
before, so I have to talk about this again. Yes.
Take the roll.
Okay. Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Cron?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Item 12.03 is approval of the then and now resolutions.
So moved.
Second?
These are, a couple of these, the first two for Superior for emergency glycol repair and Genesis for sprinkler system installation. Those were kind of emergency type situations. And then elevator repair that actually exceeded the amount that we had in an open PO that's standing for that repair. So we have that, those items buttoned up to make sure that we have a process in place to avoid this going forward.
What is glycol?
I will defer to,
Glycol is, it's like antifreeze. It goes through the cooling system, and it's part of the chilling process.
Now that I know that, I'll feel better.
Who's impressed with me? Glycol. Never thought I'd be asked that question. I knew the answer.
any other questions? Mr. Brown can answer.
Take the roll. Oh, I'm
Real
sorry.
quick, I love to see these, because it just says that we're on top of our finances and we're just watching everything. But like, there's not an option for like a limit on this, like a contract, if it's below a certain limit to be
Yes,
able to
it's-
afford?
the limit is 3,000. There's a much longer
But that's
list
a
that is
state
below
implied,
3,000.
not a local policy
Correct.
option? Thank you very much for being consistent on this. Appreciate it.
Anything else?
Take the roll, please.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Cron?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye. Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Cron?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.